What two things does it take to win a soccer game? It takes a really good defense and a good offense. A few hours ago, I was watching my oldest son play soccer, and something happened that I'd never seen before as a dad, with all 5 of my kids enjoying sports, but one of my kids was playing goalie. They actually had my son play goalie for part of the second half. He's never played goalie before. He's the tallest kid on the team. He just turned 14. He's about 5'10". He normally plays sweeper, the last line of defense, and he enjoys that. But today, their normal goalie was gone, and so they asked him to play goalie. I guess he'd done that a little bit in practice, and he did a good job. He had some good saves. Nobody scored while he was goalie. The game ended up 1-1, so it was a tie game. But to win a soccer game, you need good offense and good defense. And in chapter 5 of his book, The Psychology of Money, Morgan Housel talks about kind of the offense and defense of wealth. And he basically says that there's 2 different skill involved for being able to save money than the skill of being able to make money. So chapter 5 of his book, he calls it getting wealthy versus staying wealthy. In fact, he says there's a million different ways to get wealthy, but there's only one way to stay wealthy. I guess you could say 2 ways. He said kind of a constant paranoia and also frugality, like not spending more than you make. Housel tells a story of Jesse Livermore, who was the best stock trader of his day. He'd made a lot of money. And actually, on a day when the market crashed and so many people lost everything, and a lot of people that were playing the market were taking their lives and everything, and his wife was so concerned about what would happen, and he came home that day almost in shock, and he said he had shorted the market on that day, so he had made a killing. In fact, Housel says in his book, I think that it would have been equivalent to something like $3 billion in our day. He had done incredibly well. And so on that day when so many people lost everything, he in one day had made the equivalent of $3 billion. And yet Morgan Housel goes on to say how Livermore, after that 1929 blowout, continued to make bigger and bigger bets, still chasing the accumulation of money, and ended up with nothing, and finally taking his own life. So in other words, he was really good at making money, but not good at keeping money. You could have a soccer team that scores a lot of goals, but if you have a horrible defense, you could still lose games. So there's 2 different skill sets, one involved in making money, another involved in keeping money. One of the key things when you think about the importance of keeping money is the way that compounding wealth works and compounding interest. Some of the best investors, you look at someone like a Warren Buffett, and partly what makes them so good is that they invest for the long run. It's not just about quick wins. It's about winning over time and compounding interest working for you. So one of the best ways to keep the money that you earn is don't make huge bets. Don't do risky things. Do the smart thing consistently, and over time it pays off. One of the really important things that Housel talks about in his book is allowing a margin of safety, room for error. Don't go all in on any one thing. Be diversified and keep that margin of safety. It's incredibly important for the defensive side of protecting your wealth. It's interesting because at the end of the chapter, Morgan Housel shows a chart where he shows GDP over the past 170 years. And the average American lives 20 times better than they did 170 years ago. And he shows all the wealth that's been created in that time. But during that time, there was remarkable cause for pessimism. In fact, he lists several specific things. 1.3 million Americans died during that time while fighting 9 major wars. Roughly 99.9% of all the companies that were created went out of business. 4 U.S. presidents were assassinated. 675,000 Americans died in a single year from a flu pandemic. 30 separate natural disasters killed at least 400 Americans each. 33 recessions lasted a cumulative 48 years. The number of forecasters who predicted any of those recessions rounds to 0. The stock market fell more than 10% from a recent high at least 102 times. Stocks lost a third of their value at least 12 times. Annual inflation exceeded 7% in 20 separate years. And according to Google, the words economic pessimism appeared in newspapers at least 29,000 times. So during that 170 years, there was all kinds of horrible, terrible, very bad news. And yet, in general, if you look at it over time, there were dips and so on, but the market kept going up. So part of building wealth is playing the long game. Don't get so focused on tiny individual returns or day trading or trying to make a quick buck, but invest for the long term. Jesse Livermore, who he talks about in the beginning of the chapter, who made $3 billion in one day and later lost it all. He says, I sometimes think that no price is too high for a speculator to pay to learn that which will keep him from getting the swelled head. A great many smashes by brilliant men can be traced directly to the swelled head. It's easy when you have a good day or a good week or a good month or a good year in the stock market to get caught up thinking that you're an expert, to get arrogant about it, and that's typically when you probably need to be the most careful. Play the long game, offense as well as defense. They're both important. They're two separate skill sets. And I wish you all the best in your investing journey.